شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه وبركاته عليه. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وأحسن هدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We continue in the chapter in the tremendous book entitled Kitaab At-Tawheed, the book of monotheism, the book in which it's incumbent upon every Muslim to learn. In this type of book, ya ma'ashal ikhwah, you'll find that Ahl Ilm, especially in the contemporary times, goes through this book over and over and over again. You'll find that the great Imam, Sheikh Abdul bin Baz, rahimahullah, that he used to go to the likes of books, or the likes of the books such as Kitaab At-Tawheed and Usul Al-Thalatha, time after time after time after time, over and over again, to show you its importance of trying to grasp the meaning of what? Of a Tawheed and the meaning of it, and knowing how to worship Allah properly, and what is shirk, and what aspects does it fall into, or how does one fall into it, because it's the most important of all affairs, and it's the reason why one was created. So you'll find, like we said, ya ma'ashal ikhwan, the study in these books is of the utmost importance. And you'll find that a lot of the Muslims have become, like we said, negligent in cultivating their children and their families and they themselves upon these type of books, in which you'll find that a lot of us are losing our family members and our youth to the streets because they're not teaching them the Tawheed and the Ma'rif of Allah and teaching them the proper Aqidah, the proper belief, or the proper methodology. For your find, ya ma'ashal ikhwah, we continue in the chapter باب ما جاء في التغليظ في من عبد الله عند قبر رجل صالح. The chapter which comes in the severity of one worshiping Allah by the grave of a righteous man. We stopped at the narration which is in Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, the authority of Abdullah bin Mas'ud bin Ghafal al-Hudhali. And that was his real, or his whole name. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud ibn Ghafal al-Hudhali radiyallahu anhu ardah. They said that the most evil of people, the most evil and wicked of people, is that when those who the hour will reach them, or they will reach the hour, and they are alive, and those who took the graves as masajid. We talked about this narration, ya ma'ashal ikhwah. We said that the meaning of the hadith, that those wicked, or the most wicked of people, the most evil of them, is those who the hour, or they will reach the hour, meaning the establishment of the day of resurrection, and they'll be alive. As we talked about last lesson, we said that this hadith does not contradict with the narration of the Prophet ﷺ, which is in the Sahihain, that there will never cease to be a group of my ummah, of my nation, upon the truth, victorious. No one will harm them, whoever leaves them off or abandons them, until the affair or the command of Allah Ta'ala comes. We said that the meaning of this hadith, that لا تزال طائفة من أمتي على الحق ظاهرين, that there will never cease to be a group of my nation upon the truth, victorious or manifest. No one will harm them who lets them down or abandons them until the command of Allah Ta'ala comes. And then another narration we know, حَتَّى تَقُومَ السَّاعَةِ, until the hour is established. The narration until the hour is established, does it mean that the actual hour will be established, or does it mean that it will be close to being established in comparison to what we just mentioned? What do I mean by that? Look to the hadith in your book. It says, the most wicked of people of those who the hour will reach and they're alive. Is that the meaning of this hadith here? There will never cease to be a group of my ummah upon the truth. They will never cease, meaning they will continue to what? Exist. Is there a contradiction in these narrations? We said no. The meaning of the narration here, as we talked about last lesson, number one, we have two narrations that explains, we just said this last class, it says, حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ, until the affair of Allah comes. And we know the meaning of that narration is what, everyone? Is that there will be a rih. There will be a rih, a wind that will come from Yemen, and will تَقْبِضُ كُلَّ نَفْسٍ مُؤْمِنَةٍ. There will be a what? A wind that will emanate from Yemen, and it will take the soul of every believer. So that's the meaning of the what? Until the affair of Allah comes. Is there a wind that will come and it will grab the soul of every mu'min? And there will be nothing, or there won't be anyone left of Iman and Tawheed on this earth. There's another narration, as we said, when the Messenger of Allah likewise says, حَتَّى تَقُومَ السَّاعَةِ وَالْمُرَادُ بِذَلِكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ قُرْبِ قِيَامِ السَّاعَةِ. But the meaning of it, until the hour is established, the meaning of it is until the establishment of the hour will draw near. Meaning right when it is about to be established. As you'll find that Ahl Ilm say that that's the meaning of it, and from that is the great Imam Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah. He said it's not meaning of it لا تقوم الساعة أو حتى تقوم الساعة يعني قيام الساعة بالفعل. المراد بذلك قرب قيام الساعة. What is intended by it is that the establishment of the day of resurrection will be what? Extremely close. So it does not mean that one will understand, based upon this hadith, that there's some type of contradiction, due to the fact that we just explained that the last part of the narration says, until the affair or the command of Allah comes. Meaning the wind will come and take them, and it will take at death every soul that is a believing soul or person of Iman, until there will be no one or anyone left except the people of kufr and shirk, the people of disbelief and the people of polytheism. And we know that they are the most what? They are the most evil of people, and they're the most wicked. The people of polytheism and the people of kufr and disbelief are the most wicked of people. And upon them the hour will what? Be established. We talked about the different types of actions that these people will commit. As one narration says, فَيَتَهَارَجُونَ كَمَا تَتَهَارَجُ الْحُمْرُ فِي الطُّرُقِ وَكَمَا يَتَهَارَجُ الْحَمِيرُ. At the last days and times, he says you'll find, due to the fact that they'll be upon disbelief and polytheism, they will start to kill one another. And they will what? Wreak havoc. And there will be a bunch of chaos and mayhem. And they will kill each other. And we talked about some of the signs, may Allah preserve us in you, that there will be people also likewise that they will be fornicating and committing abominable evil, filthy acts or abominable acts in the roads, openly. And upon them the hour will be what? Established. And we know that the description of them is that what? That they are the most evil and wicked of people. And upon them, like we said, that the hour will be established due to the fact that the reason of why the creation was brought into existence now will be lost. As we talked about how this dunya right now is sustained or it's remaining for only what? For the reason that the Tawheed of Allah is established in the earth. Meaning that there are people from the Sunnah and the people of the Haqq who are still propagating the reason why the creation was created, which was for the unification of Allah and His worship. That's the only reason why the creation was brought into this existence. As we'll talk about, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa, as a lot of people think, وَلِلْأَسَفْ, that the dunya is the ghaya. الدنيا ليست الغاية. الدنيا مجرد وسيلة. That's how you have to look at the dunya. The dunya is just a method. And it's not the goal. It's not the intent. How can you make the goal, the intent, something that you're not going to, it's not promised that you'll be what? Given. Not today, not tomorrow, not this split second. And how are you also going to now make your goal something that has in it different levels. When you're happy, and then there's days where you're what? Where you're sad. How can you make this dunya your ghaya based upon these affairs? Like we said, the dunya is just a wasila, and it's not a ghaya. It's just a method, and it's not the what? The ultimate goal. It's not. For you'll find, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that the people of Tawheed is the reason why this dunya is still what? Still exists right now. There's still people out there who's upon the haqq, and they're propagating it, and they're staying and remaining steadfast upon it. And that is the reason why the dunya is remaining right now. Once that has been removed, or the worship of the ibad of Allah, which the creation was put into this existence for, has been removed, then that will be the what? That will be the sign of the destruction of the whole world. Because now, once there will be no monotheism left, even to the point where some of the narration says, he says that the hour will not be established تقوم الساعة حتى لا يقال في الأرض Allah Allah. That it will be so bad, and the remembrance of Allah will be removed until the point that the hour will not be established until it's not even mentioned in the earth, Allah Allah. To let you know that there will be no what? Signs of monotheism left. So it's going to be absolute disbelief and pure polytheism, in which we know that once that is established on the earth, then every other sin follows behind it. Killing, murder, abominable acts, sex, chaos, the end of it. There's no place that the Tawheed of Allah has not been established, except you will find these type of what? Affairs taking place in that place. These type of things and affairs taking place. There is no place where the Tawheed of Allah has not been firmly established, except every abominable evil act follows right behind it. You name it, it's being done. Drinking of intoxicants, having of girlfriends, committing a murder, chaos, mass hysteria, people not being afraid to come out their homes except that they're subjected to murder, or someone that's going to come and take their belongings. All this is due to what? That there's no ma'rifah of Allah ta'ala, and there's no monotheism. As a result of it, chaos. That's the replacement of what takes over. So we see, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, the meaning of the hadith here, like we just mentioned, it said, the message of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned and said that there will be the most wicked of people that hour will be established upon, and they're the most akhbath wa ashar an-nas that will be left. And as a result of it, that hour will be established upon them. The point of reference is mentioned in the last part of the hadith. If you look here, it says, الَّذِينَ يَتَّخِذُونَ الْقُبُورِ masajid. Those who take the graves as masajid. Those who take the graves as masajid. Those who take the graves of the masjid or as masajid, this is a description where Allah gave, or the message of Allah gave them, even though they did not fall into polytheism. Just merely them taking the graves as masajid was a reason for them earning this description of what? Them being the most wicked of creation, even though they didn't fall into shirk. Why? Because we discussed a couple of weeks ago, the reason why they're the most evil of people, because they opened up its door. They opened up its door. So it's not a prerequisite or condition that they have to actually fall into shirk itself. La, that's not the meaning. But if you open the door to it, your reason for its door, its fitna being what? Open, then you deserve the description of what? Of what the message of Allah said, of a person being the most evil of creation. You opened up a method from the methods of polytheism. And we know and discuss that the al-wasa'il laha ahkam al-maqasid, that the methods of how things are done by, that they take the ruling for how one uses it. Even though here, in this particular instance, all the doors have been shut, even the wasa'il of shirk, even the wasa'il itself is muharrama. As we know, everything that is done as a wasila to attain something, it takes its hukum. For example, in order to attain, for example, what is a wasila to doing something obligatory, then that particular method has become obligatory. Meaning, in order for one to attain the salah, what does he have to do? What he has to do in order to get up and perform the wudu and things of that nature, the wasila, in order to now validate the ibadah of Allah, to validate the worship of Allah, The wasila to attain that is all the different affairs that comes before it. Those affairs are also wajib. And we know the qa'idah, even Shaykh al-Islam says, وَمَا يَتِمُّ الْوَاجِبُ إِلَّا بِهِ فَهُوَ وَاجِب. وَمَا يَتِمُّ الْوَاجِبُ إِلَّا بِهِ فَهُوَ وَاجِب. Where's your books and your stuff? He says, for what something is obligatory, is carried out and complete by, then that thing also is wajib. وَمَا يَتِمُّ الْوَاجِبُ إِلَّا بِهِ فَهُوَ wajib. Of what is an obligation, if it's not carried out or complete except by that thing, then that thing also likewise is what? Obligatory. وَمَا تَمَّ بِهِ الْوَاجِبُ إِلَّا بِهِ فَهُوَ وَاجِب. لِأَنَّ الْوَسَائِلَ لَهَا أَحْكَامُ الْمَقَاصِدِ. And also likewise, what is something of a muharram, in order to attain something that's also impermissible, then that thing is also what? Impermissible. Takes the same what? Ruling. طيب. Notice in the hadith here, ma'ashal ikhwas, it says, verily the most evil of people. You'll find that it says in this narration, the most wicked or evil of people, which lets you know that evil is of different levels, as we know. That ash-shar yatafawat. That evil is of what? Different levels. Just as we know that good is of what? Different levels. And all of it is different according to a person's either how much they do it, or what type it is, What's the problem? Oh, you got those books. Oh, okay. Firstly, how it's done is we'll talk about, inshallah, meaning the action, how much one does it, how he does it, and also what type it is, and also the jins, as we know. For a person that prays 2 rakats is not like the person that prays 4 rakats. The one that prays 4 rakats is not like the one, or he's better than the one who prayed, for example, 2 rakats, for example. Or the person that came to the salah while he's focused, and he has that fear and that humility and that concentration in his heart is present, and he's focused in the prayer, is not like the one that's praying and he's in a state of heedlessness, and his heart or his mind is somewhere else. So verily they have different levels, even though they're both performing the same act. The salah for one person that prays, for example, a voluntary prayer that he prays 4 is better than the one that's what? 2. And the person, like we said, that's in the prayer and he's doing it in a manner where he's focused and his attention is focused in the prayer and in his humbleness, also his concentration in the prayer is there, and his focus is not like the one who's heedless and is inadvertent, where his mind is somewhere else, to the end of it. So all this is to show, based upon this narration, that evil is of different levels, likewise good is of what? Different levels. And that those affairs what? Yatafawat, as we know. So not all evil is at what? One level. Just as all good is not at what? One level. Everything is different based upon the kamiyya, the kayfiyya, the naw'iyya, and the jins. All 4. Based upon the kamiyya, how much you do it, the kamiyya, the kayfiyya, how you do it, the naw'iyya, what type you do it, and the jins. Naw'iyya, and the type. And also the jins. Jins meaning a whole different action in comparison to the action you're doing, something totally different. We got to get into the Masail because I wanted to finish the chapter up. Let's read the Masail, everyone. Kayfi is how you perform it. Naw'iyya means the type of the same action. Just say the type of the same action. Naw'iyya is the type of the same action. The jins is the type of action. Kamiyya means how much, how many. Kayfi is how you do it. The kayfiyya is how you do it, how you perform it. طيب. All these are indications that what? Just as evil is of different levels, good is also likewise of what? Different levels. Just as Iman likewise is of different levels, according from one person to the next, similar to that also likewise evil is of different levels, according from one person to the next. For the person of nifaq, as we know, is on a higher level of disbelief and of danger than the one who's upon clear kufr. Due to the fact that we know that that Allah Ta'ala said, إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ وَلَن تَجِدَ لَهُمْ نَصِيرًا. That we know that the munafiqeen, they're in the lowest part of hell. Why are they in the lowest part of hell? Because they professed Islam openly, hence they were hiding and concealing what? Disbelief. And they were more of a danger upon the Muslims than those who are just open disbelievers, as we know. طيب. Likewise, the people of disbelief is not like the people who are still in the fold of Islam, but they're still calling to misguidance. Even though all of it is evil, but one evil is what? More higher than the level. But all of them are considered what? All of it is evil. طيب. You just walked in, I can't explain it again. طيب. So, in this regard, we got to roll. Fihi masail. Let's read the masail, everyone. The first one is, the first mas'ala. Say it again. No, the first matter. The first mas'ala is that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ that he mentioned, of those who build a masjid in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what? Worshipped in, by the grave of a righteous man, that it is what? It is impermissible. Even if it's of a salah, and in certain instances we'll talk about, even if it's an affair of other aspects of worship, such as slaughter, or sacrificing, or even, for example, give a sadaqah. If the person has, for example, the i'tiqad, the belief that if I do this worship by this person's grave, then it will bring me closer to Allah. Or it will bring me closer to that individual which is on a higher level. If he commits shirk with Allah Ta'ala by trying to draw close to the person who's dead, that's even on a higher level. But if a person thinks that me, for example, sacrificing this animal by the grave of this individual, which will be a reason for Allah accepting this act, this also enters inside of what we're speaking about now. Takes the same hukum, takes the same what? Ruling. If you have a belief, you're standing by this grave, and that today I'm going to slaughter an animal or a sacrifice that I want to offer to Allah, and I have the belief that me slaughtering by the grave of this individual who's righteous will be a reason for Allah accepting my act. This also enters what? What we're speaking about. All these affairs is what we're speaking about right now, even if the person has a good what? Intention. Notice that Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, that he mentioned this clearly. He said what? ما ذكر الرسول في من بنى مسجدا يعبد الله فيه عند قبر رجل صالح ولو صحت نية الفاعل. He says that the message of Allah already mentioned by a person worshiping, building a masjid in which Allah is worshipped in it. He says by the grave of a righteous man, even if his niyyah is correct. As we talked about this from the minhaj of Ahl Sunnah, that we have not been what? Commanded to look in the hearts of the people. That's not our what? Our affair. Not for the person who's doing it, nor for us to what? Investigate it. What do I mean by that? Meaning the person himself cannot justify what he did wrong by saying, I had a good intention. As far as the good intention that is between the abd, is between the abd and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For a person would say, for example, I intended good, but, like we said, the mizan, or the scale in which Allah has given us to now look at the actions of the people is based upon what either agrees with Kitaab al-Sunnah or opposes it. Either based in statements or actions. That's it. No more, no less. If a person says a correct statement, which is agreeing with Kitaab al-Sunnah, then we what? Then we encourage him to continue upon that uprightness. However, if a person does something or says a statement that opposes Kitaab al-Sunnah, then it's incumbent upon us to what? Advise them. Advise them if they're not knowledgeable of what they're doing or aware, or they're not in a state of being educated in the religion, then we advise them with what? With gentleness at first. We be gentle with them, but the point of the matter is that they still what? Still have to be corrected. And the way a person corrects is looking at the time, the place, and how you what? How you do it, and how you convey commanded the good and forbidden the evil. For majority of the people, like we said, especially the Muslimun, especially when they commit or say statements that oppose Kitab and Sunnah, then, like we said, take in consideration the time and the place, but still, they have to be what? Corrected. If a person now wants to say, for example, you don't know what I intended, then we say the intention is between you and Allah. But as far as what the actions that are done and manifest and clear to us, then we bring the scale of Kitab and Sunnah. What is done and agrees with it, then we what? We congratulate that person and we encourage them to continue upon it if it's correct. And if it's something evil, then we advise them in an appropriate, acceptable manner. In certain instances, like we said, the message of Allah was assertive with some of his companions for those who had knowledge of what they were doing and the ones that the message of Allah knew that they can what? They could take it. But there are certain people with certain personalities out there that cannot what? They're a little sensitive. So in that instance, you will have to deal with them in another manner. And like we said, they're just like our children. And some of us who have children in here in this room know that there's certain personalities of children, those who especially have more than one child. Know that the one personality of one child is not like the personality of the other child. One personality, one child can what? Can handle a little sternness and assertiveness. And one child's personality is not like that. He can't take it. If you were a little stern with him, it probably would scare him. So you have to know how to what? How to put everything in its proper place. And the people are like that likewise. There are people out there whose personalities that can handle it. They can take assertiveness. They have tough skin, as they say. And certain people out there, and that's just how Allah created the creation. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's certain people out there that cannot what? That assertiveness, it will be more of a harm to them. Rather, if you just say it in a manner that's acceptable and kind and generous and courteous, they'll accept it and it will help them change and it'll help them become better. But however, like we said, the point of the matter is that the person still is what? Corrected. So a person should look at when they're educating the people how you will what? Educate and correct your child. You give them the first warning, you do it in a manner that's what? Acceptable. Because the child does not know. He needs to be taught. No one was born in this world being a scholar or having knowledge, especially children. Children come to this world, they don't know. So that's the reason why that's the duty of the parent, to teach the child, to bring him up and cultivate him, and instill in his mind what is correct and what is what? Incorrect. Same thing with the people. The people who come to the fold of Islam, especially those who are upon different deviant methodologies and ideologies based upon those deviant sects that they were with at a specific time, then they come over to the truth. When they come over and now when they make that change and they come to the haqq, now it's incumbent upon us to now deal with them in a certain manner. A lot of them do not know. So that's the reason why when they do something incorrect, then we have to do it in a manner that is what? Acceptable, and in a manner that's respectful. And not to offend a person, not to be a reason that will scare them away or drive them away from the truth. But in certain instances, especially those we know from our brothers that were very close to us, we know that being a little bit harsh or a little assertive to them might benefit them. But, like we talked about, if a person is not knowledgeable and a person is not ignorant, do not be harsh and do not be a reason for driving them away. A person would say, well, what's your hadith? Due to the fact that the Messenger of Allah was assertive with some of his companions. He was assertive with some of them because he knew that they could take it and they knew it would be a benefit for them. From them was Mu'adh ibn Jabal. You have a lot of narrations. Mu'adh ibn Jabal said, Fattanun anta ya Mu'adh. Messenger of Allah has said clearly to him, Fattanun anta ya Mu'adh. Fattan, you cause a fitna with the people, ya Mu'adh. And one narration, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also came to one of his. Go to this narration. Also, what happened with Abu Dharr, when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said to the man, Ya Ibn as-Sawda, he said to the man, one of the companions, he says, "Oh, son of a black woman." The Messenger of Allah was what? Very, very upset. He said, "Inna kamru'un fika jahiliyyah." Very, you a man, you have some jahiliyyah with you. So the Messenger of Allah ascribed racism to be from the affairs of what? Jahiliyyah. Which to let us know the severe magnitude of racism and how it's highly condemned and vilified and disgusting in the religion. But at any rate, these are just examples to show how the Messenger of Allah was what? Was stern with some of his companions. And there's others. There's other narrations besides that. But the point of the matter is, Ya ma'ashal ikhwa, if you look to this particular benefit, you notice that it said that what? Even if the person's niyyah is what? Is correct. Still, the action of you building a masjid on top of a grave is incorrect. So you have to be corrected. You have to be advised. Even if the niyyah was intended. Even if the person comes and said, they only intended good by building a masjid on top of a grave, or putting a grave inside of the masjid, or praying a salat in the graveyard, which we said is the meaning of these narrations. They are what? Comprehensive for all these three meanings. So we said, number one, either building a masjid over the graveyards is impermissible. Or number two, if a person builds a masjid and puts the grave in it. And number three is to actually pray the prayer inside of the maqbara, inside of the graveyard. Or to even practice different aspects of worship by the grave, having the belief that that grave is a reason for your worship being accepted, or having the belief that that action will be what? A reason for Allah accepting it. If a person has that i'tiqad, it also falls into what? What we're speaking about right now. So it's not person to not only just pray a prayer, but also to do any act of what? Worship, especially in the person thinking that the person who's righteous in that grave is a reason for Allah accepting it. If he has that type of belief or i'tiqad, it falls under what we were speaking about. Notice all these narrations is pertaining to a person who prays the salat in the grave. What about the person who actually worships other than Allah? These affairs is talking about how the curse of Allah descended upon people who took the graves of the prophets and righteous people as masajid. That the la'na of Allah descended upon them. Because they what? Opened the door of polytheism. And as a result of it, they deserve the description of what? Being the most wicked and the most evil people, and also the curse of Allah descending upon them. And they did not even fall into shirk. Keep that in mind. They did not fall into polytheism. But however, they opened the wasila min wasa'il shirk linnas. They opened up a method from the different methods for people to fall into what? Polytheism. That's to let you know the magnitude of opening the doors of shirk up to the people. What will be the level now if one actually fell into it and actually worship other than Allah? What will be their what? Description then? What would it be? This is also to let you know how evil and uglified polytheism is. Even though the Messenger of Allah in all these different narrations what? Describe people as being the most wicked of people, and how the la'na of Allah descended upon certain people, that the Messenger of Allah clearly what? Clearly said. Here in these authentic narrations. So that's the first thing. So keep in mind, the minhaj of Ahl Sunnah, no one can use as an excuse or a justifiable way to exonerate himself from a mistake by saying you don't know what I intended. That is not from the methodology in which a person can now try to remove himself from being blameworthy. Right now, he used to kill someone openly, do something wrong by murder. And I turn, yeah, what did you do that for? You don't know what I intended. Does that make any sense? No one would accept that from you. Someone right now killed your mother, stabbed her to death, walked up. Yeah, akhi, you killed my mother? Oh, akhi, you don't know what I intended. Huh? Never going to accept that. Anybody going to accept that? No one's going to accept it from you. These are the affairs that you will need to accept with yourself as far as with the creation. What about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his religion, in the sharia of Islam and the sharia of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That's not even an excuse for as far as what? In regards to certain affairs, especially the affairs of the religious, especially, excuse me. So the second masala, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, and I'm going to read it quickly, even what Ibn Uthaymeen even mentioned in this regard. He said the same thing. He said basically what we were saying. He said, لأن الحكم علق على مجرد صورته فهذا العمل لا يحتاج إلى نية لأنه معلق بمجرد الفعل. He said this ruling, meaning of building masajid upon graves, he said that the hukum was applied and it was applicable from the mere action and how it was done and how the way it was done, the hukum applied. And it does not need a what? Intention. Rather, it was applied or applicable just by the mere action. The niyyah تؤثر في الأعمال الصالحة وتصحيحها لا شك. The intention, it does affect righteous actions and it being correct and valid. It affects the actions, no doubt. And personally, we know that the person, even if they're not able to do a righteous, we mentioned, I noticed I'm saying righteous action. Even if he doesn't have the ability to do it, but if he wanted to do it, and he had the intent to do the good, we know in the authentic narrations, he still will be given what? The reward for it. So intentions does affect what? The actions, no doubt. He says, وَلَوْ كَانَ يَعْبُدُ, even if he worships Allah, وَلَوْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ التَّقَرُّبِ إِلَى اللَّهِ بِبِنَاءِ هَذَا الْمَسْجِدِ اعْتِبَارًا بِمَا يَؤُولُ إِلَيْهِ الْأَمْرِ. No doubt that we're saying that the intention does affect. However, what we said, the niyyah is between the abd and Allah ta'ala. However, the action itself is incorrect and has been rejected. As we talked about this before in a couple of classes. The action itself is not acceptable. And that action likewise, if a person, especially if he intended evil, then he also will have the portion of its sin. However, the person's action is rejected due to the fact that the outcome of it was evil. When he built a masjid upon a grave, let's just say, oh, I intended good. Yeah, but the outcome of it was what? Was evil. Rather, you open the door, which is the most wicked and despicable and evil affair, which is the polytheism with Allah ta'ala. So in that case, even though you say your niyyah, you might intend the good, that's between you and Allah. But however, this action which you committed, and this action is not acceptable based upon the scale of the Kitaab and Sunnah, and as a result of it, the action is not acceptable with what? With us. Meaning we will not accept it based upon the fact that we have to correct it. And that with Allah ta'ala, Allah ta'ala knows best of which intention. But as far as in regards to what you did, then that action is absolutely what? Incorrect. Unacceptable. And we also know that which is in it of, we stop here because I want to continue this. The second one, let's go to the second masala. النهي عن التماثيل وغلظ الأمر في ذلك. The prohibition of a tamathil. The prohibition of resembling or making some type of images. How do they translate it back, by the way? They put images in what else? The what again? The prohibition of making images. The intensity of the matter in that. Where's that taken from, everyone? Wow. Go back to the first part of the chapter. It's in the hadith. That's it. Mm-hmm. Which part though? Jayyid. That the Messenger of Allah said, notice in all these narrations, the Messenger of Allah said that they're most evilest of people. Wasn't this not mentioned? Don't you see it? He says, وَصَوَّرُوا فِيهِ تِلْكَ الصُّوَرِ أُولَٰئِكَ شِرَارُ الْخَلْقِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. He says, those who made images of those righteous people. They are the most evil of creation with Allah. So they didn't even commit shirk, but however they opened up the door, what? To it. They opened up the door to it. However, the point of reference or point of evidence here is what, everyone? That they have made and carved images of those righteous people. Oh, you calling in there? Oh, it's in there. Oh, I wanted to get into this so bad. We got to finish this. I got to finish this. Oh. الله أكبر الله أكبر. ونور بهذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمد وسيد الفضيل والبعث مقام محمد. طيب. Alhamdulillah. So we found the part in which the hadith indicates towards this meaning that we just mentioned. It says, النهي عن التماثيل, the prohibition of making images or carving or sculpturing images. The prohibition of that, of forming those images and those statues, which is as a result of it, the door of polytheism was open. The door of polytheism was open. Also, likewise, the shaitan, as we know, if you look in the hadith, took advantage of their mahabba. He took advantage of their love until he made it and raised it at a level that went beyond the boundaries. Shaitan utilized and capitalized off the emotions of those people. And as a result of it, he allowed them to open up or play with their minds and their love. That's the reason why it's incumbent upon one to also check all of his affairs, especially the affairs of mahabba. If it now starts to oppose or go inside or transgress the boundaries, we are raising that love to the level of the mahabba of Allah Ta'ala. That's when it becomes now what? It's praiseworthy. But one has to differentiate the type of love and knowing its level. That one does not now impede upon the other, especially the mahabba of Allah Ta'ala. And that's what they did here. The love that they had for the righteous, because we know it is from the religion, is from Iman, to love the awliya of Allah, no doubt. If a person loves Allah, then he has to love those who Allah loves. That's part of Iman. If a person cannot love Allah and not love who loves Allah, a person has to love the awliya of Allah because they love Allah. But however, to take those people and raise them to a status that Allah did not give them until they go from ubudiyyah to uluhiyyah, that's when now it becomes what? That's when now it becomes this praiseworthy. Rather, it becomes shirk and polytheism. And that's what happened as a result of it. If we look to the first part, as we discussed, they loved those people that was righteous. What happened with Nuh? What happened, everyone? Loved them to the point where shaitan utilized those feelings to now go beyond or above and beyond the status that they were given, moving them from the level of ubudiyyah to uluhiyyah. So now what came as a result of it, that love, and them missing them and yearning for them, shaitan said, as a result of this love and this type of yearning, or this type of what? Shawq, that you wanted to see them or miss them, or you have this type of craving or desire that you have for them, that you want to see them, why don't you make pictures and images of them? And as a result of it, like we said, when they did that, and now after generations had elapsed, as we know, Shaitan had what? Planned ahead, as we talked about in the narrations before. Shaitan planned ahead. If I can now get this generation to what? Fall into it, I'll now be farsighted, where I'll get the latter generation to what? Fall into it. And that's exactly what he did. Because it says what he talked about in the last classes we said, when Shaitan had utilized the emotions, they build the images, and the knowledge became forgotten. That was another part, as we know. وَنُسِيَ الْعِلْمِ حِينَئِذٍ عُبِدَتْ هَذِهِ التَّمَاثِيلِ. As we talked about in the first what? Part of the narration, it says when the knowledge became forgotten, then that was a result of what? Their demise and their destruction. It's the same thing of what happened in the first part of time, and the same thing that will happen here at the last part of time. The reason for people's destruction will be because of what? The death of the ulama. And Allah knows best that time is coming. And Allah knows best. It's very near. So it's not only what? From no time with the first fitna of Nuh, that the knowledge was forgotten as a result of it, the people went astray. But even what? In the latter days of time, especially in these days, where the death of the ulama will be the reason for the destruction and the misguidance of the people. The true ulama. Not just the ulama who the common folk say is the ulama. No, the true who the ulama, who the other ulama say is the ulama. Not that the common folk say is the ulama. Because we know that that is what? Something common these days, where everybody uses that word freely. He's a alim, he's a alim, he's a alim, he's a alim, he's a alim. No, the ulama are the ones who the ulama knows who the other ulama are, who have the correct belief and the correct methodology. فما أكثر من تسمى بهذه التسمية والتسمية كما يقال يعني ليس اسمهم على مسماه. اسمهم على غير مسماهم. لا شك. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. For what we say that in the next part is the third one is العبرة في مبالغته في ذلك كيف بين لهم هذا أولا ثم قبل موته بخمس يعني 5 ليالي قال ما قال ثم لما كان في السياق لم يكتفي بما تقدم. He says, what is took in considerations the message of Allah sallallahu that he performing, and he was emphasizing, or he's performing that mubalagha. Mubalagha is like that emphasis, like him going to the utmost extreme and the most, if you want to say, highest extent of warning of what? Of that affair. He said to the point he made that clear to them. This was first. And he did that right before, 5 nights before he died. Huh? Exactly. Not only did he warn, but he did it in a very, very, very emphasized manner that was very, very what? Very, very, very severe. To let them know not to do this. However, a person might ask a question. The Sahaba knew that they messed the masjid. The Messenger of Allah said, do not take the grave, as the prophets, I warn you, لَعْنَ اللَّهِ الْيَهُودَ النَّصَارَى اتَّخَذُوا قُبُورَ أَنْبِيَائِهِمْ مَسَاجِدَ, right? That the Messenger of Allah mentioned is said, as we already discussed it, he says, لَعْنَ اللَّهِ الْيَهُودَ النَّصَارَى. Allah cursed the Yahud, the Jews and the Christians. What was the reason? He said they took the graves of their prophets in masajid. طيب. The Messenger of Allah warned from this. Was this to put in the mind that there would be someone from the Sahaba that will actually build another masjid, even though they already knew there was a masjid that was built right next to Aisha's house? So now would it come where they would build another masjid, or that they would be expected from them that they would build another masjid in that vicinity where they was already next to a masjid, outside the masjid, of course. That they would build another masjid on top of the grave of the Messenger of Allah? No, that's not the meaning. Of course, none of the Sahaba was even thought that they would even fall into this. But however, the Messenger of Allah was what? Given a warning of who would come what? Later. Not for the Sahaba. For Sahaba was the furthest of those who would fall into what? Polytheism, or even opening up its door. Because that's what we're discussing right now. Meaning, we already discussed this. So this shows that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was very what? He had that very high enthusiasm of what? Protecting the ummah from falling into this type of affair. He says, especially in the context of how, or the type of lugha, or the type of expression that the Messenger of Allah was using in this context, was to show the high emphasis in what he put in this matter in order to protect the affairs of monotheism, which is the pure call of all the prophets and messengers. And is the best of what? Obedience. And likewise, it's the opposite of the effect, where it is the worst of all evils if one was to fall into what will what? Oppose it. So Tawheed is the greatest, whereas polytheism is the what? Most evil. And we know everything that is under polytheism, Allah Ta'ala can forgive it, other than polytheism, as we know. There's a narration which we'll discuss, and we'll come and speak about it a little bit later on. Well, Abdullah bin Mas'ud mentioned and said, لِأَنْ أَحْلِفْ بِاللَّهِ كَاذِبًا أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ مِنْ أَنْ أَحْلِفْ بِغَيْرِهِ صَادِقًا. That I swear by Allah and I'm lying, just listen. I swear by Allah and I'm lying is more beloved to me than I what? That I swear by other than him and I'm speaking the truth. Does Abdullah bin Mas'ud want to do either? No, he doesn't want to do either. Rather, Abdullah bin Mas'ud is trying to now clarify the magnitude of the comparison of polytheism to what is what? To what is this disobedience. He doesn't want to do either. As all these affairs are evil. Swearing by Allah and lying is considered yamin al-ghamus. Yaghmis sahibahu fi an-nar. As we know that firstly, swearing by Allah and lying is called yamin al-ghamus. Where now you have utilized the yamin of Allah and you're lying at the same time is from the kaba'ir, from the major sins in which the Messenger of Allah had called it yamin al-ghamus. Meaning it's the yamin that will plunge you in hell. Ghamus or ghamasa means to plunge you in or dip you in something. Ghamus, like we said here in this narration, like we talked about, if one's to swear by Allah lying, is from those affairs that will what? Cause a person to be what? Dipped and plunged into hell. So it's a major sin. However, in comparison to polytheism, polytheism is what? Is greater even if you're speaking the truth. Because polytheism is no comparison in regards to what? To ma'siyah, to disobedience. So that we said, even though Abdullah bin Mas'ud does not want to do either. Doesn't want to swear by Allah and he's lying, or swear by Allah and he's lying, or swear by other than Allah even though he's what? Telling the truth. He doesn't want to do either. Rather, but he's trying to teach the people the magnitude of the two sins, how one is greater than what? Than the other. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? You sure? Yeah, are you understanding? Play. What's the next one? Fourth. You're not with me. نهيه عن فعله عند قبره قبل أن يوجد القبر. Prohibition of its action by his grave, even though there was no grave. There's no qabr. Is that clear? Or it needs to be explained? Somewhat. The prohibition of this action. What action, everyone? Jayyid. That is before there was even a what? Before he died. Was there a grave yet? No, it wasn't a grave. Not yet. But once the grave was the Messenger of Allah ﷺ took the initiative to what? Warn before the affair of death took place, where the grave and other affairs had what? Carried out. طيب. Is that clear? طيب, the fifth. It's the sunnah of who, everyone? The Jews and the Christians, and the graves of their prophets. And we know the message of Allah ﷺ had clearly said, لَتَتَّبِعُونَ إِيش سَنَنَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ حَذْوَ الْقُذَّ بِالْقُذَّ حَتَّى لَوْ دَخَلُوا جُحْرَ ضَبٍّ لَدَخَلْتُمُوهُ. As we will talk about, inshallah, that you will most definitely follow the sanan of those before you. You said a arm span by arm span, until if they was to follow a lizard hole and go into it, you will also what? Go into that hole. And we see that as a lot of the Muslims have practiced exactly what the message of Allah prohibited. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. طيب, the next one, everyone. Them, the curse of him because of that. طيب. Is that to show that just the Jews and the Christians, even though they fell into this, the curse descended upon them from Allah? Does that excuse the Muslims? No, it doesn't. The message of Allah ﷺ taught this in order to teach the Muslims for you not to do it. And if you do it too, then the la'na will descend upon you likewise. So it's not just for merely what, everyone? It's not just for merely to tell you of what, or informing of what took place in the past. Rather, it's to teach the ummah for you not to fall into it. If you fall into this, the la'na of Allah will descend upon you. So it's not just exclusively for the people of the book. It's also for the Muslims likewise to commit similar acts. If one was to do it, then the la'na of Allah will what? Descend upon them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. طيب. So the sunan or the sunan of the Jews and the Christians, as we talked about, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, if one wants to know any resemblance of how to resemble the Jews and the Christians, which the message of Allah prohibited, return back to the book which is entitled اقتضاء الصراط المستقيم في مخالفة أصحاب الجحيم لشيخ الإسلام تيمية رحمه الله. The book which is entitled The Obligation of Clinging to the Correct Path by Opposing the Inhabitants of Hell. The obligation of clinging to the straight, correct path by opposing the inhabitants of hell. Shaykh al-Islam wrote that book, and he put all the characteristics of what? Of what the Christians and the Jews do, and how the message of Allah commanded to what? Oppose them in that. And he brought different examples in the book. That was the whole reason why he authored the book. He authored the book to put resemblance of the Jews and Christians, whether it be in ibadah, whether it be in worship, whether it be in looking, whether it be in sitting, and even in praying. He brought all the narrations. How the message of Allah prohibited, say, don't do that. That resembles the what? The people of the past, from the Jews and the Christians, who Allah was angry with. And how we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was angry with them? Don't we recite Surah Al-Fatiha every day? غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِينَ. Allah has clearly said that His anger and His wrath is upon, or His wrath is upon the Jews, and that His what? And that He also described the Christians as being upon dalala, upon misguidance. So why you want to imitate them? And in that book, what it was called, Iqtida Sirat al-Mustaqim, he brought all these affairs in there. All of the worshiping of the Jews and the Christians and resembling them, like we said in ibadat, and mu'amalat, and fi hay'at al-julus, and fi shakal wal-hay'a wal-libas, all of that, in your clothes and everything. How to oppose the pagans, how the message of Allah ﷺ talked about how the Jews, that they do not what? Die. He's telling them to what? Die to be to the end of it. Or even in their prayer, likewise, because we know in certain ways of sitting imitates a dog, likewise, or certain things, or certain animals that the message of Allah also prohibited. But at any rate, we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned in a lot of narrations of how to oppose the Jews and the Christians and not to resemble them, especially in the aspect of what? Ibadat. What was summarized after that book was by the great Imam Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, this author. Right here. He wrote a book called Masail al-Jahiliyyah. Masail al-Jahiliyyah, ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, is a summarized version of Iqtida Sirat al-Mustaqim. So I'm teaching you guys something new that certain people don't know. Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab came and he summarized Iqtida Sirat al-Mustaqim in the book called, as everyone knows, Masail al-Jahiliyyah, the affairs of pre-Islamic ignorance. He summarized it in that book called The Affairs of Jahiliyyah. And you'll find that the narration similar to what Shaykh al-Islam mentioned in Iqtida is similar to what he mentioned in what? In Masail al-Jahiliyyah. Why? Because he wanted to summarize it. Summarize it for the people so they can know that certain affairs is affairs of pre-Islamic ignorance and for the Muslims to avoid it. So as a result of it, they will not fall inside, or they will not fall, or the la'na of Allah will not fall upon them, or the anger of Allah will not fall upon them. And that's what he summarized in that book called Masail al-Jahiliyyah. Huh? That's what they translated, some of them called the aspects of the days of ignorance. Masail al-Jahiliyyah. Masail means matters, affairs. It can mean all that. Sheikh Muhammad AbdurRazzaaq, نفس مؤلف هذا الكتاب, Kitaab At-Tawheed. Sheikh Muhammad AbdurRazzaaq has a book called Masail al-Jahiliyyah, which is the summarized version of اقتضاء الصراط المستقيم في مخالفة أصحاب الجحيم. It's the summarized version of it. Summarized it. طيب. Let's keep reading because we got to pray. People are waiting. I don't want to oppress the people. طيب. So it said that from the la'an of Allah descended upon them as them taking graves of their prophets is masajid. The la'an of Allah descended upon them. Like we talked about before, they did not even fall into shirk. They just took the graves of their prophets as masajid, and as a result of it, they opened up the doors of what? Shirk, and as a result of it, the la'an of Allah descended upon them. طيب. Seventh mas'ala, أن مراده تحذيره إيانا عن قبره. That his intent or message of the message of Allah is to warn them, or to warn him warning us of his grave. Not to what? Worship by it, not to worship it, not to sit on it, not to make dua to him, sallallahu, none of that. Not to make dua to him, especially. Whew, that's a whole nother level. طيب, not to take his qabr as a Eid, not to take his qabr as a wathan yu'bad, as some narrations say. That's in the fact, that's in the next chapter. Oh Allah, la tusayir qabri wathanan yu'bad. Do not make my grave as a wathan, as a what? An idol to be worshipped besides Allah. So the message of Allah sallallahu what? It's going to come in the next chapter, don't worry. So the message of Allah sallallahu prohibited that what? Preventing us from taking his grave as a masjid, either praying in his vicinity or praying in it or building a masjid over it or what have you. We discussed the reason of why the Haram al-Madani to this day had why the house of Aisha is inside of the masjid. We explained that. But not the grave, but inside the house of Aisha. طيب. Eighth. How they translate it? The reason for his grave not being in the open. Jayyid. We talked about that last class, right, everyone? We said that the Messenger of Allah was not buried like everyone else due to the fact of his fear of what? That there will be people that will try to what? Worship his grave, or worship by his grave, or do something else. And Allah knows best that the Rawafid and the Shia were running their country, what they would have made his grave, and Allah knows best what they would have done. طيب. The ninth, we already talked about that. We said it was comprehensive. How many meanings? 3. We discussed them already. طيب, the 10th. جيد. It says أنه قارن بين من اتخذها مسجدا وبين من تقوم عليهم الساعة فذكر الذريعة إلى الشرك قبل وقوعه مع خاتمته عليه الصلاة والسلام. He mentioned صلى الله عليه وسلم that he joined between those who took the masajid or the graves of the graves of righteous people's masajid, and between those who the hour will be established upon. And he mentioned the means and the methods to polytheism before it took place, despite of him dying, alayhi salatu wasalam. He took them and made them as what? Most evil and wicked of people. This is mentioned both. The people who the hour will reach them on the day of resurrection, as we know, that will be the people who's upon disbelief. There will be nothing left in the earth of Tawheed, of monotheism, at all. And upon that, like we said, there will be no one left except the people of polytheism and the people of disbelief at the ends of time and the end or the last days of this dunya. And as a result of it, like we said, that the hour be established. And the Messenger of Allah described them on the same level of those who opened up the door of polytheism by establishing qubur or graves over a masjid. He put them at the same level of being most evil of creation. The same level. which is to let you know how they are with Allah, how Allah Ta'ala also what? Detests these people. طيب. We're also going to talk about, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, how in these narrations is the affirmation of love of Allah for certain affairs and hate of Allah for certain things. That Allah hates shirk, and there are people who are wicked with Allah. There are people who are evil and are wicked with Allah Ta'ala, and that Allah Ta'ala hates shirk and its people. Both. He does not like polytheism nor its people. And we said that's the meaning of being Muslim. A person, what is the meaning of being Muslim, everyone? What's the meaning of it? Or what's the meaning of Islam? Let's go back to that. Al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed. Ma ma'na al-Islam? You used to give da'wah to a non-Muslim right now. What would you say to them? Cover your mouth up. Try to cover your mouth when you're young. If you used to call a person to Islam, what would you say? Anyone can answer this time. It's open. Submission to Allah by unifying Him in His worship. What's the second? وَالْإِنْقِيَادُ لَهُ إِيش بِالطَّاعَةِ. Submitting yourself to Him by obeying Him, by obedience. What's the third? البراءة من الشرك وأهله. هذا هو المراد بالإسلام. الاستسلام لله بالتوحيد والانقياد له بالطاعة والشرك والبراءة من الشرك وأهله. البراءة من الشرك وأهله. كذلك البدع وأهلها لا شك هم من باب أولى. طيب. Freeing yourself from shirk and its people is the meaning of Islam. It's the third meaning that a lot of Muslims don't realize. They think it's just Islam. Well, some of them translate it as peace. They say Islam means peace. La, Islam is what will bring peace. It is what will bring peace and security, no doubt. But that's not its meaning. But from one of its goals and from its noble ghayat, from its noble goals is to actualize peace in the earth, in society, no doubt. But that's not the meaning of it. The meaning of it is what we just said. Is istislam lillahi bit-tawheed wal-inqiyadu lahu bit-ta'a wal-bara'atu min ash-shirki wa ahli. It's freeing yourself from shirk and its people, and also, was what to discuss, inshallah, bid'ah and its people. Bid'ah and its people. There's a lot of people do not know. طيب. So like we talked about, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, this is also what's incumbent upon the Muslim to realize. You'll find that these basic fundamentals, a lot of the Muslims do not know this. I've seen Muslims give interviews and they'll say, yeah, what is the meaning of Islam? And he'll say peace. Yeah. Terrible translation. Terrible. Bad translation. That's because it's sad, because the kuffar, the non-Muslims, know who to choose to represent Islam to make it look bad. They know. So they'll choose either the most ignorant of the people, or they'll choose those who are upon a deviant methodology from either the extremists of the Muslim, or the extremists from the deviant sects of the Muslims. And they'll pick him to represent Islam because the non-Muslims know that they're going to make Islam look bad. They know that. That's the reason why they intentionally pick the wrong people to represent Islam. They know that clearly. That's the reason why they either get an extremist to represent and talk and run his mouth, or they get a person that's extremely ignorant to run his mouth and to talk speak about these affairs. Because they know ultimately they're going to sit back and laugh because they know that the people are watching, and they're going to say something out of their mouth that makes the people think that Islam is is absolute a religion of it's a religion of hatred, if you want to, whatever name you want to call it. They think that to portray Islam to be a religion of hate, to be a religion that doesn't respect people, respect society, respect people's property, respect lives, doesn't have any of that. It's just beast. It's just absolute mayhem, absolute chaos to the end of it. And they know how to do it, and they're professionals at it. That's why you'll never see them bring anyone who's upon the correct methodology of Islam to represent Islam. They'll never, Allah knows best, a lot of them will never bring them, especially here in America, because they know what they're doing. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? They know exactly what they're doing. But we'll stop here, inshallah, because we have to pray. So leave it. Now, this is where I wanted to start at. Never remind me, because this is very important here. The 11th part. The number 11 is very, 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 very important. I can't wait to talk about that. That is very important. The 11th. So put a mark on the 11th part. We just did that. We just did it. Any questions about the lesson? هل من سؤال أو استفسار؟ تفضل. Absolutely. That's impermissible. Person that dies in memory of so-and-so. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No doubt. Especially the images and the sculptures and statues and all those other matters. How you see after generation to become more what? Raised and raised. Similar to what happened with Jews and the Christians, or what happened with Jesus and his mother. You'll find that a lot of the Christians, especially the Catholics from amongst them, who take them as deities, especially Mary. Especially what? Especially Mary and Jesus are the Mary, of course. But you'll find that the statues is what puts in their minds that there's something what? There's something divine about them. Something divine about Jesus and his mother. It was some type of what? There was some type of status with them. But it was a status of ubudiyya, that's it, of worship. No more, no less. It had nothing to do with uluhiyya. It had nothing to do with ibadah. He's done. He's awake. Any other questions so we can stop, inshallah? Tafadda. What is it? Nughayr? Nu'iyya. The type of the same action. Of the same action. Meaning, you have the faridah and you have the nafal. You have what is obligatory and you have the voluntary or supererogatory prayer. It's the same thing, but it's different in the what? As far as in the obligation of that one being voluntary. Or that one being obligation, that one being voluntary. But it's the same action. Tafadal. Kayfiyya is how you do it. No'iyya with a ayn. No'iyya. Huh? No'iyya. Huh? No'iyya. Kammiyya. Like how many times you do it? Jins is a whole totally different action. No, kammiyya is how many times you do it. Sometimes it could be the opposite. I'll talk to you guys about that later. Tafadal. That's what they seen at the church. Uh-huh. For those who are affected by that fitna, whoever got affected by it, they fall into the same sin. They take the same hukum. If they were affected by it. Yeah, if those people were led astray by it, not only do the people that open the door shirk, not only do they receive the sin, but also those who was misled by them, they receive the sins of who they misled. Meaning they get the sin of what they did, and the sins of those who committed the acts, along that believed what they were doing was good. So they get all of that. Is it clear? Oh yeah.